so far. In a moment, we're going to actually watch two videos, and we're going to have a chance to hear from both Kyle Nell, who is the Director of Innovation for Lowe's Home Improvement, and we'll also hear from Kieran Hannon, who is the CMO for Belkin. So we want to talk a little bit about innovation today, as well as the Internet of Things, and specifically about how both of those things help to dramatically change the consumer experience. So this week, I think there was one sweeping statement that you may have heard. It came out of Michael Lazzaro, who is the CMO for Salesforce.com. He related the CMO of today might as well be the Chief Customer Journey Officer. So we're going to hear a lot about that in a second. Without going too far into it, I'm going to let you watch two videos from the guys, and then we're going to bring them out on stage for a discussion. Thanks.
It's really my dream come true. It's something that I have always wanted to see, that I'd seen in science fiction stories in the past, that I always thought, man, I really wish that was real. And so we built it, and it exists. I'm sitting in it. What we decided as a company to do was to create these labs, which are physical places where we can quickly bring in new technology and new startups and try them out really fast. Everything that we're working on inside of the Lowe's Innovation Labs is stuff that no one ever would think that Lowe's would be coming out with, ever.
So Futures is a foresight and innovation consultancy. What we do is we use the power of sci-fi narratives. And out of that came this idea of this Hollow Room.
Welcome to the Hollow Room. So the first thing you do when you go to the Hollow Room is you recreate the room that you want to renovate. Next, you add in all of the things that you could possibly buy or do inside of a Lowe's. Then the real magic happens, and you go inside of this Hollow Room where you get to experience the selections and the layout that you just picked, and you get to see and feel what it's really like. You will, in the very near future, be able to use this in your own home, in your pajamas if you want to. So this is really big for Lowe's in a lot of ways, both for the Hollow Room and just for this Innovation Labs idea. The things that are coming up are going to blow people away, no question about it. I can't wait for people to see it.
We human beings heart this technological world because it connects us with likes and alerts and notifications that tell us what is happening, when it happened, and if it will happen again. It puts us here, here, and here, instead of here. Under this bed, saying yes to this girl. In this ridiculously sweet hug. And nothing should keep you away from here. Not an iron you think you left on. Not lights you think you left off. Not dinner you know you should be cooking. But if any of it does, it's time to ask yourself, can I Wemo that? I need to warm up the place before I get home. Can I Wemo that? I need to snooze, but I also need coffee. Can I Wemo that? It's raining and the sprinklers are on. Can Wemo stop that? My kids need a TV curfew when I'm out. Can I Wemo that? Wemo will monitor, measure, and manage this home that is your life. Like magic. It lets you be there when you're not there. So how about you take today and Wemo that?
So I think I should be joined by both Kyle and Kieran in just a moment here.
She's alive.
So this
Oh,
is
yes. Where?
so this is Kyle right here to my right, and a little further is Kieran, if you haven't had a chance to meet them. And first of all, before we start, very well done. I'm so excited to get to moderate this panel. I've been involved with the CMO Club for a long time, but these are two brands that I really believe in. I want to go out and just throw a few questions out to both of you, but before we go ahead and get started, I think I know a lot about both these projects, especially Kyle, with you. I think it started somewhere around a comic book and Star Trek, which is not usually what you hear is the beginning of a board meeting that leads to an innovation project. So why don't you go ahead and start and tell us about that, and then we'll turn it over to Kieran.
Yeah, so probably like all of you, it's very difficult to communicate new ideas that don't have an analog, right? So, people always refer to things as things in the past. So, like, the car is a horseless carriage, and the blah, 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 and email, is mail, but it's electronic. So people always refer to things in the past, something that is so divergent and so innovative, it's very hard for people to wrap their heads around. And so, in my frustration of being the innovation guy at a lot of big companies, like at Walmart before this and at Lowe's now, it was, how do I present these ideas, not just ideas, but how do I get new ideas, and then how do I get people behind it? So a buddy of mine, he was the president of a large marketing research company, and he had this half-baked idea, why don't we hire professional science fiction writers and have them come up with short stories that are real stories, narratives, not chronological order of stuff, but real stories with conflict and resolution and the whole thing of where possible futures could exist, right? So if you subscribe to the many worlds theory, right, there are an infinite possible universes from every possible decision you ever make, but there's more probable futures. And this is where technology and trends converge. And so if you have a pretty good idea of where these technologies and trends will converge, you know where your business could fit into that. And that's what these stories do. It's like, how would home improvement, how would Lowe's play in a world in 5 years where all of these trends in tech kind of converge? So we turned those stories, we had these professional science fiction writers turn those into stories. We turned them into comic books, real comic books, and I just passed them out to the executives. I mean, this was like the first time I did this was a full-on make or break moment for my career. If you're thinking of Lowe's as a Southern conservative company, it is. It's a home improvement company. Really smart people run it, but they don't usually get pitched to in comic book form by their people. And to my pleasant surprise, they loved it. Not only did they love it, but they were able to get over it. It helped us get over this chasm of how we were going to achieve something that ended up becoming the Hollow Room, because there were a lot of technical things that we had to build ourselves from scratch, actually turned into 2 separate companies, but more focused on the outcome. And so when people would ask me what I do, I show them vignettes from the stories, from the comic books. And I don't get caught in we got to figure out this technical challenge that even Google hasn't figured out yet. And we have to do this and we have to do that. It's like, no, we're making this happen. And it's been so powerful in that, you can show these same comic books to a frontline store employee all the way up to our CEO, and they all get it, and they all build on it in their own way. And I've never seen a tool work in that way. And the things that are coming out shortly, more than the Hollow Room, are way more bold and crazy, and it's all from this science fiction craziness, which has been great.
Cool. So thanks so much. Kieran, when I watched your video, I couldn't help think that Super Nanny might approve of what was going on there. Everybody was disconnected, but at the same time, they were enjoying and loving their lives. Could you talk a little bit about what Belkin is doing with Wemo?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. So Wemo is our Internet of Things brand, and people are probably wondering, well, what is the Internet of Things? It is probably the most fundamental shift in the marketplace. In Andy Sur of Fortune magazine recently retired, and he said in his lifetime, the Internet of Things is the most monumental change from a business perspective. So we've been looking at this marketplace for about 5 years, investing in and creating products and a platform that allows people to take simple products, use them in a very approachable, easy-to-use manner, and start to experience what a smart home could look like. The category is called Internet of Things. From an end-user perspective, it's known as home automation, it's known as smart home, and so forth. But at the end of the day, does somebody really want a smart home? And so the purpose of the Wemo That video is to show you it can be a much higher, more aspirational level calling. And so our goal is to make Wemo ubiquitous with this category. I would tell you, yesterday I had a pleasure of spending some time with a engineer from Microsoft who recently joined from Google. And he said something that really made me kind of pull back up very, very quickly. He said, we are moving from an advertising-based economy to a values-based economy. And when you think about what that really means, this is what the Internet of Things is about. We're becoming a values-based economy, and that's the excitement here. You've all heard the stats. 2020, they expect 50 billion devices to be connected to the Internet of Things. So that's what that's about, and we want to Wemo that.
Great, thank you. So the conversation today is really about the consumer experience, and we've talked a lot about today. Yesterday, Gartner talked about the fact that the cost of maintaining a consumer these days is kind of nearing the cost of acquiring a new one. So that consumer journey seems to be as important, if not more important than ever. How much conversation around the consumer experience led to maybe approval of going from a comic book to a hologram at Lowe's?
So great question. So I think what it, especially in the innovation land, it's about the stuff, and then the person is kind of on the, oh well, it's just cool, it'll work out, and that clearly doesn't work for lots of reasons. And so it's all about, that's why the story, the science fiction prototyping process is so critical to everything that I do, is because it shows the intersection of trends and stuff on people in their lives. And how it will actually work. I mean, the classic example that I use is like, you know, science predicted that a car would exist, but science fiction predicted that traffic jams would exist. I'm more concerned about traffic jams than I am about cars. Someone will create cars, maybe we'll create cars, but it's the intersection of people, many things all coming together, and how we can help customers or people alleviate those inherent traffic jams that will result from these new things coming out. And that's what the Holoroom does. It helps people to make use of Internet of Things and other new technologies coming out, and then others we've created ourselves, to solve some basic fundamental desires. Like, you'd really like to see things you could buy in your own space overlaid in your own living room. Like, that's kind of a thing that everybody would like to do. No one really wants to go into a Lowe's and spend 6 hours with 3 kids and a wife or a husband, right? But if you can do that at home, how much easier would that be? And so all of these things, technology is getting to this point now where we can literally make whatever we can imagine. But the story, understanding what it is, and then working backwards is so much better than wandering around Silicon Valley hoping to find something and apply it.
Thanks. Kieran, it definitely sounds in both situations, in both the Holoroom and in the Wemo experiences, that the lines between the physical and digital world for the consumer are really blurring. Can you talk a little bit about how that is playing into your marketing strategy at Belkin and Wemo?
Sure, great question. It is hard to communicate the benefits of in the Internet of Things. So you got to present very simple individual use case solutions, and then the light bulb goes off. For instance, we all know during the holidays, one of the biggest concerns was the Christmas tree lights left on when you left home, right? So with Wemo, with the Wemo switch, right, you can plug the Christmas tree lights in, and your way, you know that it's off, right? We've all had those examples where, oh, did I leave the iron on, or I'm out having lunch, and I'm thinking about what I should be doing for dinner, right? Don't you want to be living in the moment? And so that's what the beauty of Wemo is about. It's really letting people get on with their lives and continue to live in the present. So from a marketing communication standpoint, it might look like we're trying to oversimplify the category, but really at the end of the day, there's examples of it in the mobile space. I come out of the mobile space. When smartphones first came about, you didn't have consumers going into stores and looking for a smartphone. It was very brand-centric. They wanted an iPhone. They wanted, you might remember this brand, a BlackBerry, right? So fast forward to today, we're applying those similar techniques. It's proven in the marketplace that they don't come in, oh, I'm confused about the smart home. What does it mean? Really, Wemo that. We've taken care of it for you so you can get on with your day. And that's what we're doing in our marketing.
Great. For either of you, in terms of the consumer experience, I've got stepsons 28, 23, a daughter that's 7. I can't drag them into stores, but they're buying things online. Do you have any quantifiable results about new consumer segments that this is opening up? It's probably too early, I suppose, for you, Kyle, because
Yeah.
you guys are launching right at the
Yeah, it's a
end
bit
of
early
this
for us, but yeah, maybe.
We actually have something very interesting. We've been spending a lot of time in this space. And we've identified a segment, it's very much a psychographic segment. We call Meet the Solvers. And there's a number of traits of the solver mindset. They're people that are very intuitive. They don't consider themselves geeks, but they're very intuitive and they want to problem solve. And then they want to share that, not in a boastful way, but for other people to add to it. And so we feel that's a real core for Wemo. It's very interesting when you probe a little further, and they're not geeks, but they're the first ones to cord cut, very first ones to go to Roku and Hulu and cut the cable. So it's people that are very comfortable with technology, but they don't consider themselves technologists. And The other thing that's very interesting, just again about how you can pigeonhole things, smart home, what does that imply? Implies these are products for your home. A lot of people take that very literal. It means I actually have to own a home. Well, not at all, right? We got products you just plug into the wall and you can unplug and walk away. It's perfect for our apartments, You're in New York, you're a single woman coming home late at night. When you want to be able to have the lamp on before you come in the door. Very simple, you Wemo that. So again, this problem-solving mindset is the one that we're tapping into. And these people love to create, they love to share, so social media is a huge part of this.
Great. Thank you. You may have two different sets of answers for this, but I think of innovation, I think of collaboration these days. I'm sure in selling the Holoroom, perhaps it helped that you had relationships with Singularity University and others that have been doing these things. Can you talk about some of the important partners?
Yeah, so partnerships are really everything. The story is one thing, but actually building it is quite a different thing, especially when you're Lowe's and you have to build tech that no one else has built before. So I think the critical thing about having a partnership from a corporate standpoint is really having a partnership. There's this interesting part of innovation, that's like this huge, hockey stick curve. But before you hit that really great part, there's this massive disappointing part. and without a partner, you're just going to wallow through the disappointing part, and then it's going to die off. And having that real, true partnership, I've seen it time and time again. You can move so much faster, you can move so much cheaper, and you can work through those inevitable disappointing parts of true innovation. I built multiple labs throughout the country around certain initiatives, and when new people come in, I challenge them to pick out who are the Lowe's people and who are our other partners. And people can't tell, and that's how it should be. You should be working hand in hand with your partners. If you could have vendors, and that's a different relationship, but we choose to have partners. It's the only way you can build this kind of stuff.
Kieran, for you on partners?
Absolutely. Partners, we all know, some of the parts, the power of that sum is much, much greater. And it's taking the best. We're essentially a software company, a platform that provides it. And then we work with partners. I think yesterday, unfortunately, wasn't here, but I believe Rocky from Jarden was talking about the Crock-Pot and Mr. Coffee. They really know who their audience is. They're creating delightful product experiences. And we're helping them integrate that into the Internet of Things so it can be part of a broader ecosystem. That's a great example of a powerful partnership.
Great. Does anybody in the crowd have questions? I have a bunch more, but since we're speeding through these, I thought to... Right there. Go ahead. I think the mic is coming right over to you.
Thank you. It's so funny that you were mentioning, Lana, you asked the question about really extending the customer experience beyond the actual tangible customer that's actually paying for the product, and then the end consumer, the people that are involved in the usage and the experiencing the brand. We had this very same discussion over lunch. It was interesting. We were talking about omni-channel management and customer experience, and in comes Joe Frost, the super nanny, sits down at our table like, where do we go with this conversation? But it became a conversation about enrolling the whole family and really appealing to them, but they're very different audiences. Yeah. How do you balance your holistic brand voice out there, but still differentiated enough for the different type of end consumer or customer?
Great question. So let me relate it back to innovation stuff, right? So what we're doing is trying to turn Lowe's, replace it plank by plank. If you think of each company as a ship, plank by plank, and to create a different kind of thing that's going to get us in the future. Everyone realizes that what got you here is probably not what's going to get you to your 20 or 30 from now, right? And we don't really know which things are going to stick. We have a pretty good idea, but you can't know until you try. And part of that partnership, going back to what we were talking about before, is having that trust with your customer to be able to say, we do this all the time. We put stuff in the stores and hey, this is I was hoping this would be 80% of the way done. It's really, at this point, it's about 60% of the way done. We're just going to put it out there for you to test out, give us your honest feedback. This is not finished by any stretch, but we're letting you into the circle of trust. Work with us, help us make this better. And what we found is that you get so much loyalty and love by being fully honest and showing stuff before it's fully done, in the right way, of course. That's for me, and from the innovation standpoint, kind of antithetical to the way that it's typically done of we got to get it exactly right or else the whole system's going to come crashing down. It's more about being fully honest with where we're going and what we want to do with our customers and getting that partnership with them.
I think we're actually, unfortunately, going to need to wrap. But Kyle and Kieran are both around. I
I
encourage
can
you.
be found in the nearest bar.
With a few others, I'm sure. Okay. Thank you so much. Take
Thank
care.
you.